Uh, Hi everyone. Uh, I'm Mike. I'll be going through a series of paper one questions. I'll be helping you mostly with unpacking the question, some question analysis, and then maybe go through some possible arguments for the different questions that I'll be doing. Yeah, so we'll start with the Diamond High Prelim question 12. So the question is having a sense of wonder still possible in today's world? So as with all questions that you encounter, we'll start with unpacking the question, defining some of the key terms. So for this question, I think what should stand out immediately to you would be a sense of wonder. Sense of wonder. So a sense of wonder, I think we can take it to be something like awe or curiosity and curiosity. I think you can make arguments on behalf of both definitions. Yeah, and then so the question is essentially asking you, is having a sense of awe or is having curiosity still possible? Can it still be had in today's world? So the context that they've given us is in today's world, and what I like to do, what I also encourage all of you to do is when you see the context of your of some essay questions, what you should do is to list down features or characteristics of the context that you think would be relevant. So regardless of whether it's in today's world or just today or in your society, so think of attributes that you think would be relevant. So in today's world, I can imagine something like globalization to be relevant, increased interconnectedness to be relevant, or even capitalism, a tech-driven world. So all these are characteristics that we think you can use to help you with your responses to the prompt. Yeah, okay. And the next thing about this question is, it sounds like it sounds like it would come from a cynical person. Right? It's having a sense of wonder still possible in today's world. Not unlike a question that goes something like, is it still possible to have fun today? Is it still possible to be happy today? Right? So all this kind of cynical sounding questions, what they usually have is an assumption. Right? So the assumption for this question is that actually it comes from the word still, because still means at this point. So there is a time element here, that there is something about today's world that have led to a diminished possibility in feeling curious or feeling amazed by things, right? So the assumption that we want to address is, namely, there is something about today's world that that to sorry wonder, right? Yeah. So now that we know what the assumption is, so what the question requires us to do would be to think about in what ways have we lost the ability to wonder, right? And then you would also want to address what is it about today? It's, right? What is it about today? What about today's society? What about globalization that has led us to feel a diminished sense of possibility in feeling wonder? What is it about increased interconnectedness? Is it that you are desensitized by novelty now that you are exposed to so much information every day, right? So these are possible ways that you can take your arguments. Okay, yeah, so we can go through some possible arguments you can make with regard to these questions. So I think there are essentially two positions, right? So the first position would be that sense of wonder is not possible. So that's the first position that you can take, which is in support of the prompt. So maybe you can say something about capitalism. You can say that the sheer force of capitalism and its pervasiveness, maybe, in our lives, have trapped us. Cycle of work and business, striving, right? Something like that. So, and then of course the resultant lifestyle is right, and then you give the consequence, which essentially is not having time to wonder, not having time to seek awe, right? So awe seeking is now luxurious and often unattainable, right? So I think this is an argument that is mostly about people are burnt out, overworked. I think, and you have a ton of examples. I think I did a cursory Google search on Singapore and work-life balance. You have several surveys, studies from every year, 2023, 2022, 2021, year they have something like that. So this one is, I think, quite an obvious point that you could make. You could also have something, if you want to make a point about political evolution, right? Maybe you can say something like how the strides that we have taken in progressing as a people, since people may suggest that we have reached the apex of our development. Right, so this is an argument basically about the evolution of political system, right? There's a famous thesis on that, about how we have come to the end of history. Not that there will no longer be kind of political contention, but that we have arrived at a point where we have discovered what is the most ideal political system already, right? Which is democracy, and that countries will increasingly democratize, or at least look like they are democratizing, right? So it's the sense that we know what is the ideal already. So everything else we are doing is just to shape ourselves to resemble that ideal as much as possible. So there is no sense of wonder and thinking about, oh, what's the best way to govern society? We know what's the best way. We just have to prepare our people, prepare our leadership towards that end, with that end in mind, right? So there's no novelty in governance. There's no novelty in politics, right? Yeah. So another argument that you can make, that now that I just thought of, so I cannot give you a what I'm doing, is something about being desensitized from information, like something about being desensitized by novelty, because we are exposed to so much information every day, right? So the abundance of information has made it such that individuals are now desensitized by novel things. So because of that, something exceptionally interesting is happening in the world, but it doesn't inspire any kind of wonder when you learn about it, right? Because you just have so many things happening going on around you that you don't really care about these things anymore. So that is the result of an interconnectedness, an increase in interconnectedness among ourselves, among people. Yeah, and then we have different second position, which is sense of wonder is still possible. Right. So for this one, I guess you can have a rebuttal on one of the points about how science and technology, the advancements have led to a decrease in possibility of feeling it all. So I imagine the argument would go something like how far from nearing our far from making us have actually pushed the knowledge in areas and inspired greater curiosity. Right. Far from making our last apprehensions of the world. So this is the assumption that you want to challenge, right? That since we have so much information, since we are so developed scientifically, we are close to solving the mysteries of the world already. But we are going to argue against that by saying that scientific developments have actually pushed the frontiers of knowledge in so many areas outwards that we have now inspired greater curiosity towards our world, right? So now have things like, so immediately what comes to my mind at least is the mind, right? There is so much that we don't know about the mind. And then, so in philosophy, there is a branch of philosophy called philosophy of mind. So philosophers of mind, what they do is they think about things like consciousness and perception. And there have been more developments in this area in the last 30, 40 years than probably in the last 2000 years, mostly because of neuroscience, right? So now you have developments in neuroscience that would help philosophers of mind learn about consciousness, about perception better, right? So that's the result of scientific development. So far from making it such that we are inching closer to the last problem in our world, we've actually exposed ourselves, opened ourselves to a great many other problems to think about. You can also talk about the natural world. I learned recently from a colleague that like 90+% of our ocean is unknown. I Googled it. I think the conservative estimate is 80-something%, maybe 85, not known. And then marine biologists, they conjecture that there's about 90% of marine wildlife that we have not encountered because we haven't had the means to go that deep down the oceans to learn about them. So these are things that we are increasingly capable of doing with tech developments. We are able to discover greater biodiversity. So yeah, so there is still a lot. So the upshot of this argument is that there is still a lot to be amazed about, a lot to be curious about in our world. Another point that I think you can make is with regard to art. So I think what I have in mind is probably something like technology with its power to enhance our ability and realize our most imaginative visions of us. It's still probable and in fact more grounded reality now than before. Okay, so this is a point about how technology can enhance a person's creativity, the creativity of artists. So I'm thinking, I think you might be able to think of examples in visual arts or in music where tech has some is making some waves there. The example that I have in mind is in filmmaking, where you have filmmaking technology that is unimaginable 30 years ago, what you can actually do in a movie. So there is this, I think there is like the de-aging technology, make actors who are 80 years old look like they're 40. You have VR, and then you also have like tech-enabled cinematography techniques, right? So if you look at movies like 1917, for example, 1917 is a movie that is made to look like it's shot in one take, right? The whole, I don't know, 2 hours looks like it's one take. Isn't, but then technology has allowed it to look like that. So that's something you couldn't have done even as recently as 20 years ago, I think. Yeah, but 1917 is a movie that I encourage you to watch. Even if you're not interested in the movie, you should watch this thing called the Showfield Run. Right, you can just YouTube the Showfield Run. It's like a 4-minute sequence of a scene from the movie, and then you see how well made the movie is, and a lot of it. So obviously, you still need some insane craftsmanship, but the technology is the one that allowed us to realize all these creative visions. Yeah, and so today's world didn't prevent us from having the sense of wonder. In fact, right now it's even more pronounced. It's even more possible that we can do all these things, right? So this one would be a counterpoint against the assumption in the prompt. Okay, so we have, I think, more or less 5 points. I think it is probably easier to argue on behalf of this position that sense of wonder is still possible. So your thesis, I think, would maybe go something like how while various scientific technological developments have allowed us to flourish today and solve a great many questions of our world, there are still important problems in the world that we have not come close to resolving, and that much of the world remains a mystery to us. And therefore, for that reason, awe and curiosity are still possible today, and in fact, essential parts of the human experience, right? So I think a thesis like that would adequately respond to the question. Yeah, so example-wise, I think you would probably have more luck. You would probably be able to find more of them on your own. But these are roughly how I would tackle a question like this. Okay, I have nothing else. That's all. Bye-bye.